All right. Hello, everybody. This is going to be a new segment I'm doing called Career Day. Basically, it's to help people or kids in school try to figure out different career paths, kind of opening their eyes to all the different careers that are out there. And we have a really interesting one. We have my personal friend of 15 years, Will Faquharson, who works at Sportsnet as a producer. So, uh, Will, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Spence. And by the way, is that Roxy in the
She is, yeah.
background?
She's always
Can you
laying, yeah,
hear?
always. Yeah.
What's with that pose? That
That
doesn't even seem like
she's
a possible
she's
pose.
the only dog I know that constantly lays on her back.
That is amazing. That distracted me immediately as soon as we started, but I'm glad.
Perfect.
I'll try not to get distracted by that. Anyways, yeah. Do you have a name for this segment?
Yeah, it's called
Story
career.
time,
It's
right?
called career day. That's what I thought too. You gotta like really like figure out which ones are
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, I'm a producer at Sportsnet. Right now, my role is during the pandemic. Now, I'm working on the Tim and Sid show, which we do remotely from home. So I'm directing that show um, through computers at work. It's this nerdy setup. I remote access a computer, and I basically choosing what's on the screen as the director, which isn't my normal role, but it's something
Right.
that's evolved throughout the last year during the pandemic, and it'll continue for a while longer until we end up going back into studio.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what
Um,
I'm doing now. I've done many different roles over the years.
yeah. So did this job? Did you get into producing before COVID or after COVID?
I've been working at Sportsnet for and the Score previously for 14 years now. So
Right.
I've got a lot of experience. I started working at the Score as an intern in my second year at Ryerson when I was in university, and I've been working. I first started out as a ticker guy, so I would write all
That's
the
yeah.
the stats and info on the bottom of the screen, and then I worked my way up to being a script writer for the highlights show at the Score, and then I started working on their soccer show, the footy show, as a highlight guy, and
Right.
eventually as a producer for that show. And then Rogers bought the Score, which became Sportsnet 360, and then I came over there and joined Sportsnet as part of that merger.
Right.
And so for the last 8 years or so, I've been working at Sportsnet producing shows, basically all the different news and highlight shows that they do out of the studio. I've been working on in some form
That's
for
awesome.
the last 8 years. So it's basically been my entire professional career, and I've been fortunate to be working in that industry because it's yeah, something I love to do.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you were growing up as a kid, did you have aspirations to be something else? Like, what was your dream job as a kid?
But when I was a kid, I loved sports, obviously.
Right.
I loved baseball. Like as a kid growing up watching the Blue Jays win championships in the early
Yeah. Yeah.
90s, I wanted to be a baseball player, and that
Right.
quickly did not happen. And then I kind of shifted into gaming at the beginning of the gaming industry,
Okay.
like the late 90s, early 2000s when PC gaming became a thing. Um, I played Super Nintendo and consoles
Right.
as a kid, but PC gaming really shifted, I think, the world of gaming and technology. So I got into that, and I didn't really have a lot of focus or ambition, to be honest,
Right.
as a kid. So I didn't really have a dream job until like the end of high school when I needed to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I
Right.
didn't have a focus. But my two things I liked were sports and like you know gaming, computers, media. I should
Right.
say media. So those two things evolved together, and I got into sports media. So it was not a dream job per se, but it was my two hobbies and
Right.
interests
Yeah.
kind of together, and I started to pursue that for a
What,
career.
what were you like in high school? And like, were you kind of a messy kid, organized kid? Like,
I wasn't the best student.
right.
The maths and sciences after like grade 10, 11, I didn't really have much interest in, and I wasn't too focused on anything really. But yeah, I don't think school was a big factor in
Right.
pursuing my career. It was more of my hobbies.
So when you left high school, and you're looking at all the colleges and universities, what were you like? What were you applying for? What were you looking to get into?
Um, what I knew was kind of following what my parents did. So my mom took radio and television arts
Right.
at Ryerson back in the 70s. So I always knew about that growing up. And at the end of high school, I actually took a victory lap because I didn't apply to any universities. I
Okay.
was a little, you know, ambitionless at the time, but I needed to focus up. So
Right.
I went back for a victory lap, one extra semester to get my head together and figure out what I wanted to do. And that's when I focused on Ryerson. I was like, okay,
It's yeah.
I like sports, I like media. I'm gonna try to go for this. And now that I know, I need to start doing something with my life, I'm going to focus on that. So
It's so funny because I
yeah,
know you. I know you so different. Like I know you like when you put your mind to something, you like become the best at it. So it's so weird to say like that you were lost for a little bit because I know you personally as like if you want to get good at something, you're gonna like focus all your energy and like get really good at it. So, um, so
yeah.
what? So
Well,
what? Where did you end
I
up?
do. Sorry.
Sorry, where did you end up going to university or college?
So I ended up getting some marks up in my victory lap and ended up applying and getting into radio and television at Ryerson,
Right.
which by name was one of the better programs for media in Canada. So I was fortunate to get in there. I did some volunteering at the local Rogers TV station in Mississauga as well to get a little bit of media experience to help me get into university.
Right.
And I ended up actually making some really good connections by doing that, which helped me career wise separate from school.
That's
So
awesome.
I did get into Ryerson and started with that. And at the same time, I was still working or volunteering on the side at Rogers TV, working on their OHL hockey broadcast and their daily news show, just getting a little bit of experience in every facet of news and sports production
Right.
at the same time.
So when you eventually graduated, did you get straight into the media side of it, or did you have a different job when you came out of university?
Well, it all started while I was in university. So
Okay.
the school was good, but it was actually the connections I made at Rogers TV that helped me get into the score as an intern while I was still in Ryerson.
Right.
And so that was one thing I did. I also did some freelance work on the side in my first year at Ryerson doing it was working with an AV tech company. So these are
Okay.
the guys who put on press conferences
Oh, that's cool.
for they did a lot of contract work for like ministry, the Ontario provincial government and like ministries and stuff. So we would put on press conferences. We'd be putting like the drapes up in the background. We'd set up the podium. We'd record the audio, set the lights up, and
That's really cool.
build the stages. So that was some real hands-on work as well to get a little more technical expertise, and that did pay well. And that could have been a career choice for me to continue with that, but I still loved sports
Right.
more,
Right.
and so I had the opportunity to get an internship at the Score in my second year at Ryerson.
That's cool.
So this was in 2007. Yeah, and so by the time I was graduating Ryerson, I was already hired like as a part-time employee at the Score. And like even my fourth year at Ryerson, the guys at work were like bugging me, like they're like, "Why don't you just, you don't even need to finish school, just come,
Yeah.
work with us more because like we can't book you enough shifts right now because you gotta go to class."
Right.
So like going back to the school question you asked me, like school wasn't even a big thing. It was more about the connections and the expertise I got around school. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been able to, get my job and progress without having that degree,
Right, right.
which I did finish. But I wasn't the best student because, like, and I mean, that's not good advice for students because
No,
it is important
it is
for
really good
other jobs.
advice
But
because
for me, it worked out this way, where my career progression is more outside of actually going to school and
right.
um, writing essays.
No, no, it is really good advice because you need to be personable, right? In all facets of life, you got to be nice, you got to be kind, you got to be respectful, and making connections is just important. I mean, you look at you, for instance. How many friendships do you have that have been 20 plus years? You know, you're good at making connections and at being kind and showing respect to people. So it's really important. It's really important for people to know. Like, even when you're in school and you think, oh, this is just a side gig, that leads to something else. Like, you don't know, you don't always know. So be kind to everyone, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it's not a new saying, but it's like it's not how you do it, but it's who you know, right?
Right.
And some of that is just good fortune, knowing the right person at the right time. So I'm definitely aware of that and grateful that I was able to meet the right people at the right time and get into the industry at the right time to follow this dream of mine. And
Right.
I've been able to stick with it for 14 years now,
That's amazing.
which is also very fortunate because it's a tough industry. Like just last week, there's layoffs um, in media companies in Canada here, and it happens all the time. I've been
Right.
through, almost every year. There's waves of layoffs because it's a tough industry to make money in.
S-
Um,
Yeah.
at all ends, like from the employees and from the employers as well. Like it's based on ad revenue, and the landscape of the industry is changing so much. Like when I was at Ryerson, we were talking about traditional television
Right.
and radio. Like the program I was in is radio and television, and they still exist and they're still very popular, but it's uh it's not easy to make money because it's all based on ad revenue, and like with the social media now,
Right.
it's so different. So I've had to evolve, but I got in at the right time. Like for people now getting in, like I don't know if the same amount of opportunities would be available as I had,
Right.
14 years ago.
So what were so you obviously had to progress within your company for you. You started off as an intern. How did you find yourself getting to the next step? Was that like through company meetings or through your boss, or like how did that exactly work?
Well, for me at the score, the good thing about the score was that they employed a lot of younger people. The bad thing was that they didn't pay us very much, but
Fair
the
enough.
good thing about that is that it gave younger people and students opportunities to get the experience and progress um, at the expense of making lots of money.
Right.
But that worked out for me. Like it was the perfect situation for me. So yeah, I like my first boss, the guy in charge of the ticker department. He hired me part time, and then from there, I was able to meet other producers and other bosses at the score. And so when job postings came up for, like, for example, the scriptwriter position, which was my second role,
Right.
um, they were very happy to hire internally. So it was a great situation, a great circumstance for me at that particular company. And from there, as a scriptwriter, I started working with the producers and the hosts. So I got to get to know them a bit, and then so that led to me producing afterwards,
That's awesome.
which then led to me, working in the control room with all the staff there, learning the technical side of it. And now here I am years later, like, kind of executing that technical side
Right.
of it, which is unique because of the pandemic. Like normally I wouldn't be directing the show, but that's how it's working out now. But all that expertise just is just one step at a time piling up, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Absolutely. So was there ever an opportunity for you to be in front of the camera, or did you always want to be behind, and what helped you to make that choice?
I did uh, I did dabble in front of the camera in my Rogers TV volunteer time.
Right.
So like back when I was like 18, 19 years old, I would do, these really crappy stories for Rogers TV, but they gave me the chance. Like I would go up to Brampton and cover like the junior OVFL football game.
Right.
Can't even remember what they're called right now, but it would be, I'd be like covering a bunch of 15-year-olds playing football
That's cool.
or lacrosse, and I would just like do a dumb story about it and not even know like at all what I was doing. But they gave me the chance to do it, and then
Right.
a few years later, I was a little more polished, and they let us do a little bit better broadcast. So I would call, GTHL hockey games. I would call some soccer games as well, like some of the lower like semi-pro leagues around the GTA, and I enjoyed that a lot. But the problem was it's very competitive,
Right.
and I was balancing that with going to school and also working at the score as a paying job behind the scenes.
Right.
So it was a passion of mine a little bit, and I did enjoy it because it's fun to be on camera, and once you get in the groove, it's fun to call an exciting game and all that stuff.
Right.
But it wasn't a tough choice for me to stop doing that because the paychecks were coming from my producing, or well, eventually producing, but the paychecks were coming from behind the scenes
Right.
stuff. And so after a while, I wanted to do full time. I wanted to work full time, and I did. I just didn't have enough time to keep pursuing the on air stuff
Yeah.
as well as working and going to school and just living a life, a
Yeah, for sure.
balanced life, as balanced as I could, as much as of a life as I have.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually I did give up on the on air stuff. But a lot of people are more passionate about that do end up on air, and it's more challenging and more competitive, I would say for sure. But it just it was more comfortable for me to stay behind the scenes, and now I mean I've really settled into that now.
Yeah, for sure. So you've worked in the industry again for 14 years now. What do you think are pros and cons of the industry, or for you personally, whatever is easier to answer?
Well, I would say the pros are the major events and working
Right.
on that because that is the most fun you'll ever have. Like for example, when the Raptors won the championship a couple years ago, I was working
Yeah.
that, and another example is the Bautista bat flip day, even a few years before that. Working those nights, which were like iconic moments just outside of just sports, but they're just
Right.
like iconic Canadian moments, were the most fun you'll ever have, right? Because you're pushing the content, millions of people are watching, and you get to be part of it, and you also get to do it at the same time.
Yeah,
So
that's
that to
amazing.
me is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
All the days where it's just like the off season and you're putting together stories about like nothing, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
So those are the pros for sure. Like that's why you do it. That's why we like sports, for moments
Right.
like that. As a sportsman, you do it for that. So that's when like your job and your passions come together and you're loving it. The cons, I would say, is the difficult nature of the industry,
Right.
and just like if I was a banker or something, I'd be in much better financial shape. Not that I'm fortunately I'm okay because
Right.
I'm not in bad shape by any means, fortunately. But that would be a con for sure. Plus, there is uncertainty for the future.
Right.
Things change all the time. Things could change tomorrow. You know, my role will be changing once the show goes back to the studio again, and my role could change again 6 months later. So I've done
Absolutely.
a million different jobs under the same title. For 14 years, basically, I've been kind of a jack of all trades, but I've had to do that in order to survive. So
Right.
I would say that's a big con. Like, you see a lot of good people get laid off because there's just not enough room for everyone,
Right.
and that's just the sad nature of the industry.
Absolutely. So what's next for Will Farquharson?
So yeah, when the show goes back to studio, I will be focusing now. My next goal will be focusing on working on the social media side,
Right.
because that, to me, I see as a viable future where, I can do another 14 years working on that, because I don't see the TV industry remaining the same for much longer. People don't consume their media like
They used
the
to.
way I learned it in school,
Right.
and the way I did it for the first 10 years, like working on a 10 p.m. TV show, the news.
Yeah.
People already know the news right away.
Right.
So that kind of media is going to change. But my role should be, hopefully, working on the social media side, where I'll be breaking the news, and providing content immediately, instead of working on a show that's airing at 1 a.m. that goes overnight, that kind of thing.
That's amazing. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for being on the show. I can't wait to watch more Tim and Sid. Obviously, you're producing obviously the biggest show that Sportsnet has, so that's an amazing accomplishment on its own. And that's Career Day episode 1 for being a sports producer, how to get there, make connections, be kind to people, and check back every Friday for our next Career Day. We have more amazing people coming. I have more amazing friends like this man right here. So see you guys next time.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Roxy.
Later.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.